I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, August the 10th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Jackie Moore, Bailey Moore, Skylar Moore there. My buddy Wes Spinks affectionately calls that Yellowstone South, but I tell you what, they're cowboys and they know how to do things right, and they will absolutely help you market your cattle. If you need to, Mark Harmon there, the PR guy, he also puts out the Cattleman's newspaper there that they put out every month and does a good job with that. But they're a bunch of folks you need to get in tight with if you're anywhere within that region there in the lower Midwest, because they can sure help you in marketing your cattle. The basis tightened last week, and it hasn't completely turned positive, but we had a big gap, especially on the feeder cattle, and it has tightened up significantly. Your feeder cattle futures were down almost $2 for the week, and your index levels on your real-time index was up almost 2.5, so it tightened a whole bunch there. Same thing with the fat cattle, as we saw your packers come out early in the week getting aggressive and paying $3 more than the bulk of the sales last week in the Southern Plains on a Tuesday. And it kind of prompted you guys in the Northern Plains to even try a little bit harder too. And they're so current that they could probably name their price for cattle. Your Northern Plains packers are going up and reaching for cattle, or going down and reaching for cattle to take north into Kansas, but actually Kansas is grading more cattle choice and prime than Nebraska is right now, because they are backed up some, and Nebraska and Iowa are so current. But we're starting to get caught up on those, and like I said earlier this week, I was one of the guys that thought we were going to be backed up until next year sometime, but we're working through those cattle really fast, and it's mostly because the USDA inventory reports did not take into account the winter of 2019 and how many calves we lost, and we just didn't have the cattle out there. But we're still behind on our slaughter. We're going to talk about that in a minute. For the year, our weights are still up, and our weights are up big time on your average carcass weight. So we know that we're still behind, or we're carrying cattle to heavy weights that are much heavier than what we normally would or have in the recent past here. But I'm going to give you guys lots of big quotes that happened here late last week and over the weekend. But I want to tell you a little story, and some of you like my stories and some of you don't. But I do work for DV Auction primarily, and do a lot of market analysis and things like that. But I go cover some sales that we take internet bids for occasionally, and so this past weekend, I had one on my schedule I had to go up and do, and I was not all that excited about having to go to the western slope of Colorado to take internet bids on a 4-H sale. But it was on there, so I headed out, and couldn't get anybody to go with me. All my daughters had things to do, and they were busy, couldn't go, and nobody else wanted to go with me. And that's one of the downfalls of being an opinionated ass, is you have to spend a lot of time by yourself. But so I headed up out of Texas Panhandle. I got to go through Clayton, New Mexico, which I go through pretty regular, but I had never seen it look so green and beautiful and lush in my entire life. I was raised right there. Northeastern New Mexico looks like the Garden of Eden. And it never looks like that. My dad used to always say, one good thing about being from Clayton, New Mexico is everywhere else you go, you really like it. But he would have loved to have seen it the way that it looked when I drove through it there on Friday. It was just unbelievable what some moisture can do in that rocky, volcanic rock country there, and it was great to go through there and see that. But went on up to Walsenburg there and hung a left and drove through those beautiful mountains there, like I say, by myself. But headed on up to Delta County, Hotchkiss, Colorado. They had their junior livestock show. Talking to the guys there, and they normally have a big rodeo, ranch rodeo too, and everything to go with. But so much of it was canceled due to the COVID, but they did have their junior stock show, and then they had a sale, and I was afraid some people weren't going to be there to support the premium sale, so they had us come in and do their internet bidding. But I have to admit, I was not too excited about going and doing it. You know, I thought, man, if I was going to drive a ways to go to a big sale, I'd have went to Dunnlap, Iowa, or maybe went to Winter Livestock the weekend before or something like that. But nevertheless, I was there. I was wearing a t-shirt and a ball cap, so that tells you how excited I was about being there. But I tell you what, when I got there, if you guys been through Colorado, it was one of those manicured, neat, really cool fairgrounds that they normally have there, you know, with the nice rodeo arena and the big grandstand and all the nice livestock buildings, and everybody I came in contact was very, very nice, and you know, and it's a very rural kind of mountainy type of a county there, you know, not really any big cities in that. You know, Delta's a fair city there, but you know, you get in that part of the country and just a lot of hippies, and I have to tell you, this whole state smells like weed. If you guys hadn't been through Colorado lately, you can't go anywhere and think, who's smoking pot, because everybody is. But went to this fairgrounds, and it was very, very nice. Everybody was nice. Just a good bunch of people there getting together and enjoying themselves during the junior stock show, and a nice following that came in and started bidding, and it was mostly just premiums on the livestock. But long about a third of the way through, here comes a young man by the name of Gage Adams. And must be a good guy with two first names. They tell me you can't trust people with two last names. But Gage Adams come in, and you could tell that he was struggling. He was wearing a little helmet there for fear that he might fall or trip or something and damage his head. I found out later he was recovering from a horrible accident that he had. He and his brothers were throwing up metal stakes in the air because it was fun to watch them come down and stick in the ground, and you guys can kind of figure out what happened there. But he's spent the whole summer in a children's hospital, but he was able to fly back in time to show his hog, and I can't hardly tell the story now. But when that hog come through there, those people bid that hog up to $14,000. Most of them were bringing, you know, $1,500 to $2,500 or something like that, but $14,000 for Gage's hog there. But then the add-ons started coming on right after they sold it, and people just, you know, throw on this, throw on this, throw on a little bit more on this buyer's number. By the time they got all done, it was $50,000 in Delta County, Colorado. But anyways, let's talk about your futures market. Your live cattle futures for August on Monday was up 20, Tuesday down 75, Wednesday up 2 cents, Thursday up 32, and Friday up 17 cents, with August live cattle contracts ending the week at 102.80, down just 2 cents, so pretty close there. You went to October, it was at 106.45, down 142. August feeder cattle, Monday was up 20, Tuesday was down 17, and Wednesday was up a dime, which you say, well, that wasn't much change. There was a lot of volatility, especially the first 3 days of the week on your feeder cattle futures. They just closed very near where they started, but we could tell we were kind of in a transition right there. We were kind of at a pivot point because there was so much volatility during the trading day. Thursday was down 32, so you kind of started seeing that. Friday down 75. August feeder cattle ended the week at 142.72, down $1.95. September ended the week at 145.12, down $1.10. Your fat cattle trade through Thursday, they'd sold 82,300 head already, and then had some additional cleanup trade on Friday. So we're looking at probably close to another 100,000 head week, and those are good weeks. And we've been selling a lot of cattle cash right through this COVID, and then it's continuing, and packers are really putting on good face there and acting like they're wanting to show transparency, and likely it's just some of those formula deals are coming out costing them more than the cash cattle. Not so much now, but for sure during the COVID, the worst of it. Of course, we're still through the COVID. We can't ever get out of it. But your live steers and heifers through the week sold from 99 to 104, but largely from 97 to 103. But your weighted average on steers and heifers in the 5-area feeding region, or just steers, 101.28. That was up almost $3. And I told you they started out right off the bat there early in the week $3 higher, and they pretty much stuck right with that. And then the northern plains caught theirs, so they were about $3 higher too. Dressed steers and heifers from 162 to 169 with a weighted average dressed steer price of 163.19. That was just about steady. So your live sales kind of caught up with your dress sales there. But on Friday, I told you we had cleanup sales, 1,900 head in Iowa confirmed from 103 to 105. We hadn't seen 105 so through the week there. Not a lot of it, and just by regionals, namely the Tama plant up there, but still quoted 105 steers and heifers. Your dress sales from 163 to 164. So the market was stronger at the end of the week than it was at the strong point earlier in the week. But Nebraska, 2,100 head confirmed from 102 to 103 and 163 dressed. Kansas, about 1,600 head confirmed at $1. And you got to remember, they were at 97 earlier in the week and still doing some cleanup stuff at $1. So that's good. Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Friday. And Texas is your last frontier of backed up cattle. And I was having dinner with some industry leaders there in the Texas Panhandle in the feeding industry, and then they confirmed that they're still backed up on some cattle there. They've got some big cattle they'd like to get moved. It is starting to get a bit easier, but the weights on all the other cattle came up as they was fooling around trying to get those big cattle dead. Box beef cutout values, your weighted average for the week last week on choice cuts, 204.52. That was up $2.18 from the weighted average of the previous week. Selects 191.29, up $1.42 from their weighted average the previous week. So we are gaining a little bit, and we should be gaining. We've got a small window here where they should be rallying a little bit until we get past the point where they're making orders for Labor Day. But just back to a normal movement, 675 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings, and a pretty wide spread there, $13.23, which is kind of typical for grilling season type spread. Your slaughter for the week last week, 633,000. I mentioned that we were dark in at least one plant one day last week, and your unions are kind of playing their leverage and talking their workers into walking out and doing this and that. And we're still struggling with that. It's not necessarily the health deal. They're wanting continued and higher hazard pay, and your packers are not wanting to pay that. And I tell you what, they've kind of got them over a barrel right now. But 633,000 for the week. That was 5,000 less than the same than the previous week, and 14,000 less than the same week a year ago. Going to be kind of hard to catch up on our slaughter when we're down 14,000 for the week. But if you look at your Saturday kill, we had a huge Saturday. They were trying to catch up, but just couldn't do it. Even though we were down for the week, that included a 60,000 head Saturday, which compared to 51 a week ago and 47 a year ago. So they were trying to catch back up, but you know, our slaughter for the year to date is down 5.2%. So about 1,050,000 head behind where we were at this point a year ago. And our July weights, average steer carcass weights, more than 30 pounds. They averaged more than 30 pounds larger than a year ago. And so that just tells you kind of where we're at. Beef production is only down 2.5%, and our year-to-date slaughter is down 5.2%. So there's your big heavy carcasses there, and it doesn't take a whole lot heavier carcass on the average to make up a lot of meat and catch up there. Let's talk about feeder cattle. Didn't mention last week, was having trouble getting the results, but the cattle country video, major video there, you know, kind of working over in western Nebraska, kind of based out of Torrington livestock markets there, but a few other markets there that have joined up with them, but they have hellish videos, and they had one last week, cattle country video, talking about the Laurel Leaf livestock cattle. They're near Casey, Wyoming. That's a cool place to be from. But 355 head of steers with a base weight of 825 pounds, all natural, NHTC, all the bells and whistles there, weighing 8 1/4 for immediate delivery, 170, 250. You guys keep asking me about these programs. You know, you need to look at IMI Global's website, look at some of these different programs and see what you need to be doing. These cattle included some purchased cattle. They were home raised, but to fill their loads, they purchased some neighbors' cattle and some nearby ranch cattle there, but they maintained the paperwork and everything and continued them in the program. And that's what you got to do. You guys buying backgrounding cattle, you can buy program cattle, you can keep up the programs on them and the paperwork, and keep them in those programs and get those huge premiums that they're seeing. The big deal on those Laurel Leaf livestock cattle were the Heifers. 665 head of open yearling Heifers. Now, they were the program cattle too, but they were also replacement quality. So you had two guys or two different types of buyers banging on them, but 665 head with a 780-pound base weight for, this is near Casey, Wyoming, for late August delivery. Bring 166.50, guys. Wow. Okay, let's talk about your brick and mortar type sales there. Your real-time index on DV Auction ended the week at 140.93, up $2.33 compared to the end of last week. Cash feeders were $2 to $4 higher on your yearling cattle and your long-time weaned fall-born calves going to feed. So all your feeding type cattle, sure $2 to $4 high, and they've just been higher here for the last several weeks, or last 6, 8 weeks they've been largely higher as we've been selling these really, really good feeding cattle. And it just goes to show you guys we need more fall-born calves. You guys need to fall calve more. I tell you what, they sell better. These weaned fall-born calves that are selling as lighter weight feeders now, and you got these farmer feeders that are wanting to put to get rid of a lot of corn. They're bringing big prices, a lot better than you see trying to sell weaned calves in the fall. And they wean so much easier. I was talking with a friend of mine, and he had bought some right off the cow. Of course, they had some weight to it, and the cows were sure glad to get rid of them. But you know, those calves had been on the grass and were barely even picking around on their mothers anymore. They just wean so much easier than it is trying to wean big calves in the fall. And I tell you what, and if we would do that, our beef demand and demand for cattle would be so much better because it would level out. But when you've got 75% of your calves being born the first half of the year, which we do, you know, something's screwed up, guys. Let's talk about your lightweight calves were not well tested yet. They are likely still out there on their mothers, or guys are just got those put together and kind of backgrounded them. But talk about your big sales. Dunnlap Livestock Auction in Dunnlap, Iowa, the Shabans. We talked about this big sale. They ended up with 6,600 head. Their 70th anniversary barbecue special ended up being their biggest special ever. And boy, kudos to them. And even though they're in central Iowa there, they had several green cattle off grass. And you think, wow, there's all corn there. And well, there's some pastures around, and they pull cattle from a lot of places. But got some quotes out of there. 120 head of really green calf weight yearlings there, weighed 557 pounds at 174.75. How about 89 head of fancy black calves there, weaned 679 pounds at 165.20. My good friend Chuck Bradley there, the world-class auctioneer, should have been the newest world champion. We'll have to wait another year to give him that crown, but he was there. He's friends with the Shabans. They brought him in to add a little extra excitement there to the barbecue sale. But look at this load of fancy green blacks here, weighed 827 pounds at $154. And we talked about how can you make those cattle work. Well, those guys are feeding their own corn. They got their own equipment, got their own pen. They're doing the labor themselves. They can get those cost of gains down into the 60s and they're hoping that those really good cattle like that gain 4.5 to 5.5 pounds a day. And you say they won't do it. I've seen where they will gain over 5, guys. They really have to be green and empty when you put them on, but sometimes they'll do it. And I tell you what, if that's the best way you got to add value to your corn, you're going to kind of try it. How about Bluegrass Stockyards, Richmond, Kentucky? Jim Doss's sale there. I tell you what, he has great sales there. And he had a big kind of a yearling special on Friday. I'm telling you what, this is like 2 to 3 blocks off of the square in Richmond, Kentucky. I went to that sale, and he and I got to visit him forever, and Mark Murphy, and really enjoyed my time there. I could not believe the sale barn sat so close to the town center there. But they had those a lot of yearlings there, and look at them all there. These are strings of yearlings come out of Bluegrass Stockyards, Richmond, Kentucky. Look at the one stick-out deal that I like the best. 54 head, 983-pound steers bring $133.75. Okay, Burwell, Nebraska. That's one of those premium sales there. Of course, all up there in the Flint Hills there on the Yellow Brick Road, but you know, Valentine, Bassett, Burwell, you know, you go, and there's some other places that have those really premium sales like that, Green City, Missouri, but Burwell had a big special sale on Friday there. 4,600 head on offer. You look at this automated market report from DV Auction that we pulled right from the block. Look at your best tested weights. 619 head of steers in the 7-weight category, average 747 at 155.35. These are the average on all the steers, guys, all of them. 1,382 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 849 at 144.71 on the weighted average price. 537 head of 940-pound steers, averaged 138.91. Look at the heifers. 521 head of 6-weight heifers, averaged 648 at 153.94 on the average. 351 head of the 7-weights, averaged 742 at 139.90. And 337 head of the 8-weight heifers, averaged 848 at 134.76. The stick-out sale in Burwell, 128 head, all natural steers, weighed 798 at $160. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.